Thalassophile. It means lover of the sea. Hands up if you're a thalassophile. I thought so. Coming from Gibraltar, most of us are. But it didn't always start off that way. Our passions develop over time through our experiences and who we share them with. And that road, that journey, in my experience, is that road to Nautilus. Because it wasn't always that way. So my story, I'm going to begin it at Bologna Beach. Because I used to go with my cousin snorkeling. I was about 8 or 9. And we used to go past the rocks all the way out as far as we would dare. And this time, we went further than we'd ever gone before. Near the end, where the currents start to really pull you out. And whilst we were there exploring through the nooks and crannies, I caught a glimpse of something in the background. It was big. And my curiosity got the better of me, and so I swam out to meet it. And as it started clearing up, it suddenly dawned on me. I was looking at a blue shark. And my curiosity was replaced by fear. And I turned tail and headed straight for the closest rock that I could find. And it was only a couple of centimeters above the surface of the water. And it was covered in sea urchins. But it didn't matter. It was good enough. And I climbed on, balancing my stomach, lifting my limbs out of the water, hoping that this shark wasn't going to come and deprive me of one of my limbs. And as I was doing this balancing act, I suddenly heard a voice. Lewis, what are you doing? It was my cousin. And that any sense of pride that I had had up to that point had been completely and utterly shattered. And I decided enough was enough for that day, and I climbed off that rock, and I swam to the closest point to shore, and I walked back. Years later, following a more conventional path, I ended up working in the City of London as a banker. And I hated it. I was counting the hours every single day until time to go home to see what I could get up to. And actually, one of the things that I really enjoyed doing the most was walking across London Bridge. And one day it dawned on me that the reason why I enjoyed London Bridge was because there was a little stretch of water. And anyone that knows London will know that on the other side of London Bridge is the London Aquarium. And as fate would have it, that's where I ended up next. There was an opening for a volunteer job. I didn't have any qualifications, but it was on my way home, on the train way to Waterloo Station. And so I applied, thinking I wouldn't get it, and I did. And at first, the jobs that I started doing were pretty menial. You know, I was doing a lot of the scrubbing, I was doing a lot of food prep, cleaning of filters, mucky stuff that none of the other aquarists wanted to do. But it was fine, and I left the bank, and I couldn't wait to get there in order to get stuck in. Something was different. And then one day, there was a fateful meeting. We were a diver down, and we needed somebody to get into the shark tank. And I put up my hand and said, I'll do it. And they said, no, you can't. You need to be a dive master. I was like, I'll do it. No, you got to have a really, you got to have over 1,000 dives. I'll do it. Do you have insurance? And that is when I realized I'd probably bitten off more than I could chew. But as it was, I got into that tank that day. And I remember climbing into the water, the vicinity of the sharks. There was no escaping it. In the wild, you've got that space. There was no space here. They were right on top of you. And I'm not sure whether any of you are aware, but sharks have an electromagnetic sense. It senses animals that are stressed, and I was stressed. And with each beat, I could feel the sharks getting closer and closer and closer. As it turns out, there are a number of strategies that you can use, including breathing, in order to lower your heart rate. But it is a very difficult skill to master. And as soon as your heart rate drops, they lose interest and situation normal. So I did it, level 2. My task quickly developed to cleaning the inside of the shark tank. As you can imagine, the algal growth on the inside is quite high, and we don't get in very often in order to clean it. And so I used to love doing this because it was one of the nicest tanks in the whole aquarium. And I'd spend my time down the bottom scrubbing away the algae at the bottom that had collected near where the lights were. And we have a collection of nurse sharks, and these are bottom dwellers. Belle was the matriarch, and she had pups, Ashley, and they used to come, they all lie together as a family down the bottom. And when I used to lie on the bottom cleaning, Belle would actually swim right up to me and press her body the whole way down mine. And I was there cleaning, and then eventually I'd need to move on, so I would. I moved on a little bit, and what would Belle do? Belle would actually start moving along right next to me, and so would her pups. To the amazement of all the tourists that were there looking at the scuba diver with these sharks lying right next to him. And so sometimes I'd embellish it a little bit because, you know these animals. So what you could do, you could tickle her a little bit, just behind the eyes, and she rides up on her pectoral fins, exposing her throat. And then I could get my hand safely past the mouth and tickle her throat. And everyone was flabbergasted by this, just like a pet, okay? Really changes your perspective about, Jaws, right? And then we went on to level 3, because sharks in the wild, they suffer goiter. It's a swelling of the throat. And it's due to a lack of iodine in their diet. So what you have to do is you have to choose the fish, dose the fish with iodine tablets, and then you can't just randomly chuck the fish in and hope that the shark is going to eat that fish. You actually have to get in the water with the shark and hand feed the sharks. None missing. Actually, if any of you have pets at home, and you've ever fed a dog biscuit to a dog, you would know how gently they take it out of your hand. And actually, this is exactly how the sharks would take the fish out of my hand. Very cautiously, very gently. So as it turns out, this was enough to convince me to go away and do my marine biology degree, which I did at Southampton. And once I had finished that, I decided that it was time to come back to Gibraltar. When I got back to Gibraltar, in marine biology, there's not very much to do. And I remember I was in Portugal with my wife, and we were sat on a beach, and I was having a bit of a moan, and how difficult it was and what we could do. And she suddenly turned around to me and said, well, we'll do it. What do you mean we'll do it? And she said, yeah, we'll do it. We'll set something up. We'll do our own thing. I thought, okay, so what are we going to do? She said, well, I don't know. We'll start off by going to schools. You can start talking to children at schools, start re-engaging the youth in our marine environment. And to me, it seemed like a crazy idea. I wasn't even a teacher. How was I going to get into schools? And yet, one thing after another, we slowly started breaking barriers. We got into the schools. We started engaging the children. We started doing a lot of the marine trips in order to get children to hold some of our marine invertebrates and see that firsthand. I was hooked. My passion had been realized without even realizing it. And so the message that I really want to emphasize here is that not everyone here wants to be a marine biologist. But we all have passions. We all have things that we want to do that make us get up in the morning. And actually, it is a really worthwhile investment to do these things. There isn't a better investment of time. I can promise you, because when I do a school trip, I mean, it's February now, but when we got a school trip, I jump into Rosia Bay at 7 o'clock in the morning in order to pull out a sea urchin. You gotta want it. In the end, we will continue working for the environment. We will continue developing this project because I never want to stop doing it. And that's what I'd like to encourage each and every one of you, whatever your walk of life is, whatever your passion is. Chase it as hard as you can, live it, breathe it, and enjoy it. Thank you very much.